Okay, so this is an introduction to dependent and independent variables. And our situation deals with Johnny and his chores. Johnny's parents want to give him an allowance based on how many chores he does. So here's the deal. When Johnny does 4 chores, he gets $12. And when he does 5 chores, he gets $14. I notice that we have some incomplete information, but in the real world, that sometimes happens. So question 1 says, there are 2 different sets of numbers given, allowance and chores, and it's important for us always to realize what the different numbers in our problem are about. So in this problem, we have chores, and I'll use green for money. We have the allowance associated with those chores. So our question asks us here, what depends on what? Now, hopefully you thought about this and you think, well, in the real world, how much allowance Johnny gets depends on how many chores he does. This sentence and being able to form this sentence is really important. And the reason why is because this tells us our dependency relationship. How much allowance he gets depends. That means how much allowance Johnny gets, or just allowance if you want, is our why, because it depends. So what does it depend on? It depends on how many chores he does. How many chores does he do? I don't know. He's going to go off and do some number of chores. I tell my students to remember that everything depends on X. So how much allowance depends on how many chores he does. So when we look at this table, which was labeled X and Y, we can use the same idea. X is our independent. In this case, it's how many chores Johnny does. Y is our dependent. It depends. The allowance depends on how many chores he does. So the information we're given is when he does, we're looking at the chore column. When he does 4 chores, he gets $12. That's a corresponding allowance. When he does 5 chores, he gets $14. What I want you to notice here before we wrap up is that if I went back to this original word problem, that's what my students say give them so many headaches in algebra, are the word problems. So if we look at turning this word problem into the algebraic language we're used to, we know that chores are X. So if we wanted to write this as an ordered pair, we'd make sure that we always list chores first. That is 4 chores makes $12. And then again, this sentence, 5 chores makes $14. We can turn this entire sentence into a set of coordinates like this, or a little table like this, and not be dealing with the words again until we're ready to present an answer. Okay, let's look at another example. Kay's goats. Kay has a farm that sells goats. She made a profit of $135 on the day that she sold 5 goats. On the day that she sold 10, she made $270. What depends on what? Does how many goats she sells depend on how much profit she has at the end of the day? No, the money depends on her hustle, right? How many goats she can sell. Her daily profit depends on how many goats she can sell. And some days are good and she sells a lot of goats, and other days not so good. Just like at your job, maybe your money depends on how many hours you go to work, or how many different shifts you get, or how many hours of overtime. So our dependent variable is what depends. Here, the money depends. So in this case, our dependent variable is profit. Everything depends on X. So when we look at this, we know that the independent variable X is how many goats she can sell. So if I'm asked to fill in the table, we always like to list our table X and then Y. And in this case, our X stands for how many goats, and our Y stands for profit. So we're always going to keep goats in this column. This sentence, notice the goats are not listed first, they're listed second. We have 5 goats, making us a profit of $135, just sorting the numbers out into their appropriate columns. The day she sold 10, and this we are talking about 10 goats, she made $270. That is her profit there. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching.